Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Wilson, and this is the very first episode of Put Your Shoes On podcast. I am so excited that you're here, that you are taking time out of your day to listen in or watch. Hoping that my camera works out right now because my first one already died on me, but that's okay, guys. We're making it work. But I am just so excited to be going on this journey with you because that's what this is. This is going to be a journey, one that I'm taking as well. This is as much for me as it is for you, and I'm so excited. So, this podcast has really been in the works for about 3 years. It has been something that I have been so passionate about for a really long time. And I'm just so happy that it's finally out there in the universe. I'm also slightly terrified because that means that all of these thoughts that I've had in my brain for the past many years are also out there in the universe, which means that I'm scared people are going to judge me. I'm scared people are going to laugh at me. I'm scared of all the things that you're probably scared of with doing whatever it is that you're wanting to do in this life. And that's really what this whole thing is about. I know that there's a lot of things all of us want to go after, and we have all our reasons why we haven't yet, and that's just a really big part of this podcast. So without getting too into the depths with that, on this first episode, I really just want to give you the backstory behind Put Your Shoes On, like the phrase and how that came as the title of this podcast. And I really want to share with you the journey that I am on, and hopefully the journey you will want to go on with me. If you hear random sounds, my cat is in here as well. She'll probably pop in the video, but I don't know what she's playing with right now. Anyways, I just want to share my journey with you, where Put Your Shoes On came from, and again, just share the journey that I'm on, and hopefully the one that you will want to take with me. So yeah, if you're listening to this, I am assuming you in some way are wanting more from your life. You have bigger dreams, you have bigger desires, you have big goals maybe, or small goals, or small desires, whatever the in between is, but really that you just want more out of your life. Maybe you're in search of a bigger meaning in life. Maybe you want to find your purpose and run after it. Maybe you don't quite know what your purpose is, or you don't know at all, and you're hoping to find it, and that when you do, you can go after it. Or maybe you do know, and you're just not sure how to go after it, which I totally get because I'm in that place too. Maybe you also thought you knew what you wanted, and it just isn't panning out, and you're deciding, as scary as it is, that you might need to swerve with what your plan was in life. Maybe things just aren't quite what you thought it would be, and you're searching for something different. But man, life is hard, and sometimes it's not as easy as it looks to chase your dream life, or even to go after big goals. Maybe it's not even the dreams yet. You're just trying to figure out what this big goal is, and you're like, how in the world am I going to get there when I'm right here? But that, my friends, that is why we're here. That's why I'm here, because I'm going after the same thing. I haven't made it. I'm figuring this journey, this life out one day at a time, and I'm really just hoping that we can do that together. So I'm going to share a little bit of my backstory, if that's okay with you, because it's really the story of how Put Your Shoes On came to be. So I'm going to take it back a little bit. Bear with me, stay with me. But I really just think this will give a better idea of like where this came from and where I'm hoping to go with it. Also apologize if I'm stumbling over my words. This is my first time doing this. And we're only going to get better with time. All right. So, my name is Shelby Wilson, if I didn't say that at the beginning. I'm now 26 years old. I'll turn 27 later this year, which is wacky. That's wacky to me that I'm in my mid-20s and I'm about to go into my later 20s in a year or two, however you define your later 20s. I've lived in Indiana my whole life, kind of grew up on the outsides of a city in in a little town called Westfield. That's not little anymore. But I've been here my whole life. I've never left, which is crazy. Maybe someday I will, maybe I won't. I honestly have no problem with here. But a big part of my life is running, or was, kind of is still. But I started running races when I was 8 years old. It started with me just kind of chasing after my mom, finishing the last couple minutes of her runs with her when I was really little. And it turned into me starting racing and getting competitive with racing at the age of 8, which was third grade, which is really early. It was only 3Ks, which is 1.9 miles for anybody that doesn't know what that is. But early on in life, running and really competitive sports in general became my whole life. And that is where I've learned so much. That's where, honestly, how I've been shaped has a lot to do with competitive sports and running from a young age. And a lot of other stuff too, but that's really kind of early on in life. Running, again, it was everything to me. I started racing young, and I went into middle school, and I somehow was really good in middle school, and in high school it was the absolute best time of my life. There was really hard moments, but overall, high school cross country, shout out WXC, shout out Sisu if you're listening to this, anyone from that, that was such a special, amazing time in life, and it just really taught me so much about grit, about hard work, about passion, and about just going after really big things and goals. And that's really where some of this that I'm talking about now, that's where it really started. And I ended up running 1 year in college and then not loving that college, so I transferred to Purdue University, where I stopped running necessarily for a team because I just was kind of burnt out at that time. Just needed a break from running, and honestly just wanted to do the college life thing and see where that took me. I did run club a little bit. For the most part, my competitive running was over when I got to Purdue for the most part. In college, if I'm being honest, was so hard for me. There was not a lot about college that was easy. Obviously, there were some really fun times. I have some crazy stories that I'm sure I will share as we go. I also learned a lot from my major when I was at Purdue. That taught me a lot about hard work and showing up and being dedicated and going after your big goals and passions. And but for the most part, I had a lot of problems in college. This is really where mental health took a giant toll on me for kind of the first time, like super seriously. It's something that I've been dealing with for a majority of my life, and I'll probably get into that in later episodes when we talk more about mental health. But that really changed a lot of things in me. I was dealing with anxiety and depression. I had addiction at one point, which I'm sure I'll share that story at a later date. But it was a hard time. And I got through it, and I learned a lot of things. That's something about me that I love, is that I have learned to take any hard thing and know that it's going to teach me something later on down the line, even though it does suck at the time, as I'm sure most of you totally understand where I'm coming from. And then I graduated, and life somehow got way harder. I was so looking forward to being an adult for so long, as I'm sure all of us do in college. We're like, oh, I just want to be on my own, independent, all that stuff. And that's great and all. But yeah, life got harder. I took a job that honestly I would label as what I thought was my dream job. I was working for a sports television company. It was exactly what I went to college for. Exactly. Everything was really going according to my plan. I'd work really hard to get to that place. I had worked 50-hour weeks in college when everyone else seemed to be having fun with their life. I was working, but it did get me to the place that I wanted to be. And so that was kind of the last few years of my life, was this entrance to adulthood, and I was working so much. I also was going through a lot of personal things, which I'm also sure I will talk about later. But I found myself in in some positions that I just didn't really love to be in. And yeah, so that was hard. Life just got really hard. And not that there wasn't great parts too, but for the most part, the first few years after college were rough, and the first few years after college was when COVID started too. So it's been a fun couple of years. I'm sure a lot of the 20-somethings that are listening to this can totally understand where I'm coming from, where it's like we kind of had 1.5 years of normalcy or trying to figure out adulthood, and then it was like, boom, COVID. Global pandemic and all the craziness that brought. That'll be a good podcast episode, honestly, is just breaking down all of that nuts stuff from that period of time. But during my first couple years, I think about 1.5 years after becoming a so-and-so full-fledged adult, I started my own health and wellness side business, which was incredible. I started that 5 months before COVID too, thank goodness. That opened my eyes to a whole new world of possibilities. And this is really where the idea of doing a podcast started, because that business and the people and the community in it really started just building me up in ways that I have never experienced before. And it was incredible. I was being fed into with all these incredible things and told that I can do this, and it was awesome. It was so eye-opening, and that's really where this started, this love of just motivation and inspiration and self-help and all the things that come with that, and just becoming the best version of myself came from. And I love that is something that I got introduced to. I, from that, started sharing a lot on Instagram about my life, about motivation, about inspiration, about things that I was going through. I love sharing advice. I loved being vulnerable. That's such a hard word to say sometimes. Vulnerable about mental health and life. And I got a decent amount of feedback where they're like, you need to talk more. But it's so hard to do that on Instagram. And I was like, someone I remember said, you should start a podcast. And I was like, that would be dope. So that was like 2.5, 3 years ago. Fast forward a little bit through that, pandemic hit, all that stuff. And I really started, because the first 7 months of COVID, I was doing nothing. There was no sports going on. So I had a very large break and a lot of time for the first time really ever, that I sat down and got to think, what do I want from my life? And that was such a critical time, and why I'm, as weird as it sounds, thankful that COVID happened, because it opened my eyes to what was really possible in my life. And I think without it, I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably still be at that last job that was making me honestly miserable at all the times, even though it had some really cool things that I got to do. I was working upwards of 80 hours a week at some points, traveling every weekend, and I was in a relationship at the time, and all my family's here, and it was so hard. And so, yeah, where was I going with that? Oh, so during COVID, at the beginning of 2021, I decided to go to a calling coach, which was so cool. And if you ever have the chance to do that, it was a birthday gift from my parents, which is like, shout out to them. What a cool gift. And that really opened my eyes, because we went through my whole life and just talked about how I got to where I am, and really dug about the things about me that make me who I am. And from that, we kind of discovered what my purpose, what my calling is in life. And it was so cool. But at the same time, I was like, okay, what now? How do I take what I just learned and run with that? And again, this is really starting to put together where this podcast, where Put Your Shoes On came from. And all during this, guys, I was in a relationship that was super toxic. That was more than toxic, that I will definitely talk about later. It's a huge part of why I'm doing this right now. But I had a mental health crisis during that, and I have been experiencing burnout for the last year of my life. Trying to get over that has been so hard. And then eventually last July, actually, so it's almost been a year, I quit my job, which was nuts. I never thought I would be able to do that, but I did. And because I had a really cool opportunity come up where I work now, which I love, still in production. And a few months after that, I got out of my relationship and I moved into my own apartment for the first time. I had one before, but honestly, this is what I consider my first ever like living alone experience. And I have been, if I'm being really honest, y'all, I have been struggling these last few months, basically since the beginning of the new year, because my whole life has changed in the last 11 months. My whole life. And I've been struggling with this idea because I do want something more for my life, but it is so hard out there. And I know a lot of you can understand this. It is so hard with everything that's going on in this world to juggle everything. And that's where I'm at now. And during the last few months, I kind of remembered this lesson that I heard about putting your shoes on in a podcast, actually. And they were kind of describing it as like, if you're trying to get to the gym, like what is the first step that you need to take if you want to start going to the gym? The first thing that you need to do is set your shoes out and just put them on. If you can just put your shoes on and get out the door, you will get to the gym. And it's really, that stuck with me so much. One, because I'm a runner. So I was like, that's a cool running metaphor. But also like, that can apply to so many things. That can apply to everything. Anything that you want to do, any big goal that you have, any big dream, what's the first thing that you need to do? What is that first small step that you can take to get to where you want to go? And that is why I have created Put Your Shoes On podcast, because I love that metaphor. I think anyone can take it and run with it and use it. And I just want to say that like those small but important decisions will accumulate over time. And the goals and dreams that you have for your life will happen if you can just take those small steps. If you can just put your shoes on and take those small steps, you will get there. And that is what this podcast is all about. And I just want you to believe that for yourself. And look, I get it. Life is freaking hard sometimes. A lot of times. It's expensive. You're probably already juggling 17 different things. You work 1 or 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. I get it. I'm there too. I'm struggling. I'm in this. But that is why I started this, because I am there with you. I am not some self-help influencer with a bajillion followers that has already made it. And I'm not going to just tell you to work harder and just do the next big thing. I hate that. That has been also a big driving force why I wanted to start this, because that is so frustrating sometimes to just hear that from people that have already made it, making it seem like the journey to get there is just A, B, and C to get to X, Y, Z. And that's just not, that advice is not always helpful. And sometimes it has made me want to do the complete opposite. I'm being honest with you. So instead, we are going to go on a journey together to discover what works best for us and chasing after our dreams. We are going to talk about self-limiting beliefs that get in our way, that get in your way. We are going to talk about all things mental health. We are going to talk about motivation, discipline, mindset, health and wellness, and we are going to find tangible things to work on for ourselves that are going to make a big difference over time. And I just want to ask you a question. If you could have the life of your absolute dreams, what would it look like? Like, seriously, think about it. If you could have the life of your absolute dreams, what would it look like? If money and time and people and work didn't get in your way, what would your life look like? That's hard to think about sometimes. So I will share a quick version of mine. When I think about the absolute dream life for me, I think of having a future family. I don't have one now, not even close, but I think of my future family. I think of the time that I want to be able to spend with my kids. I want to be there for absolutely everything they have going on. I don't want work to get in the way. I want to have a house, and I know that may seem shallow, but I want to have a house that's big enough to host as many people as I need to, that people can come to and have a great time and feel safe. And I want to help as many people in this life as humanly possible. And I don't want anything to get in the way of that. Obviously, there's hardships in life, but I just want to live a life that I'm obsessed with. And for me, that's being present and being financially taken care of, where I don't have to work multiple jobs in order to do so. Or if I do, it's things that I absolutely love. That's a small snippet. I'm still dreaming. I'm still trying to figure out what I want from life, because for the longest time I didn't think that I was able to even dream that type of thing. But I want to tell you, friend, that you are worth all of that. Whatever you were just thinking right now, your big dreams, your dream life, you are worthy of all of that. And I don't know who or what in your life has caused you to believe otherwise, but you are so worthy of a life that you are obsessed with. And yes, life is always going to have its problems and its hardships. But I want you to feel and know that you deserve a life in general that makes you excited to get up in the morning, that makes you excited for your future and the present. And it's time that you believe that. It's time that I believe that, because I'm going to be honest, it's a struggle every day for me to believe that. I have to keep telling myself over and over and over, but I want you to believe that. It doesn't have to happen today or tomorrow or next week. But you will. If you keep listening to this podcast, we're going to figure it out together. Obviously, this isn't just going to poof happen. I don't think you'd be taking the time to listen to a podcast like this if you did think that. It's going to take work. It will take sacrifice at some point. My hope is that we can figure it out together while avoiding making our mental health worse, draining our bank accounts, and I want to avoid burnout completely. I know I'm recovering from that, but I don't want that for you. If you haven't experienced burnout yet, I want to avoid that. And what I want for you is to feel like you can come here and that it's a safe space, that it isn't a place where someone's talking at you, telling you A, B, and C to get to X, Y, Z, like I said earlier, but rather an open conversation where we can just dive in and figure out how to make our lives the best possible and the most realistic, life-giving way. I want us to leave this podcast like we just took a breath of fresh air and not like we just got a gallon of water thrown at our face. Like some podcasts, honestly, have made me feel. I want you to leave here each week feeling empowered to take a step towards your dream life, whatever that may be, and not feeling like you're 17 steps behind. Wherever you are, whatever that may be, not feeling like you're far behind, whatever you are, whatever your life is like. I'm going to repeat myself because I just didn't make any sense right there. Wherever you are, whatever your life is like, however old you are, you deserve joy. You deserve to wake up with excitement for life. You deserve to be equipped to take on whatever life throws at you. You are worthy of a life that you love. You are worthy of making a difference in others' lives. You are worthy of a life filled with passion and purpose. And you may not believe that yet. Heck, I am trying every day to convince myself of that, but I hope this podcast can help you take small steps to getting there. You are worthy. You deserve it. You are worthy, and you deserve it. So thank you so much for listening to the first ever episode of Put Your Shoes On podcast. Wow, I have been waiting so long to be able to say that, and it's crazy. But seriously, thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me. If you could, please leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and write a review so that more people can join this community of ours. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you want to subscribe, that would be super dope. I would love also if you wanted to share this on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you do that. I would literally love you forever. That would be super cool. But next week's episode will be called Self-Limiting Beliefs. We're going to jump right in. I will be explaining what that is if you have no idea, if you've never heard the term self-limiting beliefs before. I will be sharing some of mine, how I'm trying to get over some of my major ones, how these will affect your life and your goals and dreams, and we will talk about some tangible ways to tackle those self-limiting beliefs that you have. So I'm so excited. And that's a wrap. Episode 1 of Put Your Shoes On podcast. See you next week, y'all. Someday I will have enough know-how to make a jingle, but this is step 1. Do something this week to put your shoes on and go after something that you've been wanting to do, a little small goal, one thing. Tell me what it is. Oh yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now. This is just so fun. See you next week, and thank you for tuning in to Put Your Shoes On podcast.